Hello and welcome to my crystal cave. I'm just going to make a video about the eclipses that are happening this month, October 2023, which are happening already. We are already in eclipse season since the last full moon. That is since the 29th of September, since the full moon on that date, until the 13th of November, the new moon after the eclipse period. We're in what's known as the eclipse kind of period where things can disappear or reappear in our lives. Sudden course corrections can happen almost without us really intending anything. And in some ways, this eclipse period is not really about starting anything new, it seems to me. It's more about, say, rebalancing and completing cycles particularly from the last 2 years. Because the first eclipse on Saturday, the 14th of October, is in Libra. It's the first eclipse in Libra since 2016, since I feel like 7 years or 7.5 years. And the second eclipse is on the 28th of October, again on a Saturday. And that's the final eclipse in Taurus in a 2-year kind of sequence, Taurus and Scorpio eclipses. And both of these eclipses seem to be very much about finishing things to me, like releasing things. But I'll take them each eclipse in turn. So first of all, the eclipse on the 14th, it's what we call a ring of fire eclipse, because the moon gets between us and what we refer to as the sun. And the moon's obviously, quite a bit smaller. So there's a kind of halo, a kind of ring of fire, of light from wherever it is the sun is. So we see a kind of ring of fire in the sky. It's called an annular solar eclipse, if I can say it. And it's mainly visible in the Americas, all the way from USA, through Mexico, Central America, and down towards Brazil. So indicating might affect that part of the world a bit more with it being visible there, but it's effective to everybody around. This eclipse on Saturdays at 21 degrees Libra. As I say, Libra, a very well-known peacemaker, diplomat, very chatty, might seem quite superficial, but he's fantastic at working in partnerships, creating alliances, and also the South Node is in Libra, conjunct this eclipse. Suggesting that this is really a key point where it becomes clear which connections to let go of, or to put boundaries around, saying, look, we're not going to do it like that anymore. This is not acceptable. Not going to do that. Also, it's more of an artistic kind of forms, like looking at these, say, I've seen people looking at literature and TV shows that they used to enjoy, and kind of just letting go of those, even by I saw one person, I mean, I should say in English, get rid of all their kind of dissonant books that they used to read, and going to the street and selling them at a market. So this kind of thing, really, just letting go of dissonant art forms and connection. Now, also, this solar eclipse, I should mention, just to avoid confusion, that solar eclipses are always new moons. New moons typically like starting points. Solar eclipse is a much stronger form of a new moon. But this new moon is conjunct the goddess of strategy and wisdom, Pallas Athena, who's at 14 degrees Libra by the time the eclipse gets here. So we might be looking around with a slightly wiser kind of point of view than usual. We might even be looking strategically at what alliances we'd like to keep with which people and which ones we're not so keen on and dropping at this point. Mercury is also at 17 degrees Libra, conjunct this solar eclipse. So we might really be talking about these things, talking with these people about discussing these potential partnerships or things that we just won't take anymore. Now, that means it's obviously a great time for starting any kind of communication, perhaps anything like videos like this, or writing. Many people starting off a Substack, for example, which is a nice form of spreading writing. I mean, I have actually looked at this and will probably get something like that going myself as well. The solar eclipse is also opposite Chiron at 17 degrees Aries, as well as being opposite Eris, the goddess of discord, is around 25 degrees Aries, 24, 25 at this point, as well as, well, these two things I should mention can make this quite a chaotic period for communications. So it's especially careful to choose our words with care. We might find that we're saying something in all innocence, but we're unaware of the kind of the web of alliances and interactions around us. So things said, even with all innocence, can lead to unintended consequences. Right now, where people might be feeling a little fragile with Chiron involved, and you know, it's a great period actually for breakups and divorces in this period. Eris in Aries is obviously not going to take any nonsense as well. Now, Pluto has gone back all the way to 27 Capricorn. It's just about square this solar eclipse as well. So that adds another layer of intrigue, power dynamics, you know, just more things to be aware of in our connections with people around us. And Pluto has only just turned direct as well. And Pluto has been stationary in the sky for about the last 10 days. You know, it's been quite powerful. I mean, I noticed that, you know, kind of power mad would-be dictators have been using this Pluto stationary energy to try and take territory, like literally land, which is obviously something totally disagreeable. But you can see that there are obviously various astrologers involved here. With Pluto the Terminator, Pluto the Eliminator, Pluto the Destroyer of all illusions, turning direct 27 Capricorn. I mean, in my chart, Pluto in Capricorn is in the 4th house, with like home, family, and roots. So naturally, I ended up somehow doing quite a lot of redecorating of my mum's bungalow. And it looks really nice now. It's like a nice sage green, it's like Gaia all around. It's, really, really great. But, I never expected that. But then, yeah, it would be difficult because Pluto's in my 4th house, right at the bottom of the chart. In Capricorn, the ruler of Capricorn is ruling planet Saturn, is in my 12th house. So it's very difficult for me to see these things. But anyway, that's where I ended up doing in this Pluto stationary period. At the same time, it's clearly a period of self-care, being very helpful and letting things crumble around us. Deciding which connections we really want to focus on. Classic Libra kind of qualities of peace, diplomacy even, harmony. So I would expect to see some much increased efforts in terms of peace talks in this period. Perhaps old alliances stepping in and saying, look, maybe that was a bit of a hasty overreaction that, recently in the start of October, and particularly over this eclipse. At the same time, with Chiron opposite the new moon, obviously everyone's, could be quite sensitive. Careful diplomacy needed. But Libra with Mercury there has a certain amount of charm. Hopefully should be able to smooth things over, the old smoothie. With the eclipse, the Libra eclipse on Saturday, conjunct the South Node, this is a perfect period to process old kind of mental loops, kind of what some people would call obsessions or sticky kind of ideas. The eclipse is conjunct the stars, the fixed stars, Spica and Arcturus. Again, is heavy indications for severing of relationships, separations and divorces that are no longer resonant, or processing programs within ourselves that are unhelpful for high frequency relationships, which is perhaps the more effective manner to take these energies, is to try and use them within ourselves. Libra also rules litigation, legal activities. So we might see a boost to court cases and bringing things to a resolution, to find some form of justice for participants in legal activities. Another thing I've seen recently is people who have perhaps not spoken up finally expressing their side of a story. Perhaps there's something that's been in their head, they've been thinking about it for like years. Like in my case, I mentioned something in my family, like, I went to visit somebody and there was an arrangement where for some reason the second day I was there, all of the beds that people stayed in were switched around, and it was all very confusing. And yeah, I mentioned this, and I got the impression people perhaps weren't too happy about this. But anyway, that was just my impression. So certainly the case that people who felt perhaps silenced, and it's been very much one-sided stories, probably will get a voice much more in this period. Yeah, which might trigger people. It might raise sensitive issues. But this eclipse is definitely pointing out, with Eris involved, that there's no way people are going to be quiet. Bearing all these things in mind, of Pallas, Athena, Mercury, Pluto, Chiron, and Eris, there's an element of chaos around this eclipse period, particularly the first eclipse. If I look back to previous eclipses around 21 Libra, there was also similar ones in October 2004, October 1986, and October 1967. So if you look at those periods of time, you might see some things to work on, or some things that seem relevant. So that's the first quite powerful eclipse. The second one, 2 weeks later, there's only two in this period of eclipses, thank goodness. And this is the final Taurus eclipse for a while, 5 degrees Taurus. It's conjunct Jupiter, who's retrograding now, it gets back to 11 degrees Taurus. It's also opposite Mercury and Mars, who by this point have got to early Scorpio, about 9 or 11 degrees Scorpio respectively. The eclipse, I should mention, to be clear, is a partial lunar eclipse. Lunar eclipses are always full moons, and this partial eclipse means it's not quite all eclipsed, is the lunar eclipse. And to be clear, in a lunar eclipse is always on a full moon, as I say, where there's the Earth has moved between the sun and the full moon, but it's not in a straight line, so it's only partial. So part of the full moon is a bit darker. It's not fully made dark as it would be if the full moon was, and the sun and the Earth were in a straight line. And this partial lunar eclipse, full moon, or partial eclipse, partial lunar full moon eclipse, not quite sure of the order of those words. But anyway, it relates to a solar eclipse last year. The solar eclipse was on the 30th of April 2022. So if you look back and see things that began like a new direction, perhaps, that happened, I mean, I can think of things, developments in program called Second Life, which I'm involved in a group in there, kind of made key decisions to kind of enhance the size of the area of Second Life that we were using, for example. And things from that period, late April last year, are said to be coming to fruition around this point. So somebody was asking about this when I mentioned these lunar cycles last time. So I'll try and explain it a little bit more clearly. So it starts off, this particular solar eclipse cycle, 30th of April 2022. And then what happened then, that was like the new moon. And then about 8 or 9 months later on after that, there's a kind of, it goes to a quarter moon, where there's more of the Earth, more of the moon is visible from Earth. I'll check exactly where that is, just a sec. So according to my calculations, looking through the ephemeris, where all the planets and the moon were and are and will be at different points in time, the opening quarter of this lunar cycle that started on the 30th of April last year was on the 28th of January this year. So anything that started late April last year, developed late January, and comes to fruition now. If you look at that kind of time period, see if you can see any patterns, things that developed. For me, it's more kind of involvement in various kind of mystical groups, and looking at things such as Feng Shui and other various manifestation tools, skills. The final quarter will be about 8 or 9 months after this. So I'll just check where that is. The final quarter of this lunar cycle that this full moon on the 28th of October is involved in is late July next year. So this will be a kind of closing quarter moon, and then that cycle dissipates. So overall, that's from April 2022 to July 2024. So that's takes 2 years and 3 months to get to the closing quarter moon. But there's also then a period after that where the energy is dissipating from that cycle. So it's between 2.5, say just over around 2.5 years roughly, the length of this cycle. But the key points in the lunar cycle are over 27 months. It will be. So the lunar eclipse on the 28th also is trine Lilith, the fiercely independent goddess Lilith, and the commitment deity Juno, who are both in early Virgo, around 2 to 4 degrees Virgo, as well as being sextile Vesta, who's at 7 degrees Cancer. As I say, this is the final eclipse in the Taurus-Scorpio axis over their kind of 2-year period. So finally, a lot of our Taurian friends and Scorpion friends can perhaps find that things won't be quite so jarring. Hopefully, I mean, you've still got Uranus going through Taurus for a little while, and Jupiter's there, kind of, making things, a bit happier and more expansive. But the eclipses will be done. So over the last 2 years, you might look at how your relationship to finances, self-worth, how you go around sharing these things with others has evolved. This eclipse really seems to me to be a final nudge to drop kind of any issues in this area, like finally kind of make an attempt to eat less chocolate. Finally, developing a real connection to nature and the planet. Perhaps finally getting a handle on spending and, directing chi to higher frequency kind of endeavors. Yeah, perhaps towards more inspirational figures, like mystics, for example, like various people I could recommend, Amelia Benz, of course, and various people who source of inspiration. Our connections to our physical bodies can also be another focus here, as well as to our deepest emotions in the Scorpio sense. Perhaps our awareness of the food that we're eating and the farming kind of methods and practices used, and various ongoing Scorpio transformations. If we're aware of a kind of feeling of lack somewhere in these areas in our physical environment or our emotional world, this eclipse will really make it clear. Now, Mercury and Mars in Scorpio indicates some powerful and transformative news reaching us, and perhaps in our kind of peaceful idyll, kind of tranquil sanctuary or happy place, which is quite kind of startling, perhaps, like some news of some big changes. Jupiter conjunct the full moon might have a tendency to blow these things out of proportion. But still, there's a great opportunity again to finally process and release various poverty programs, such as about sharing resources, perhaps, or possessiveness, ways that we like comfortable things that we enjoy in our environment, as well as our self-worth. Now, Saturn is moving still backwards, 0 degrees Pisces, but it's slowing down by the time of the full moon eclipse on the 28th of October, because he's going to turn direct in early November. So he's getting more powerful as this lord of structure slows down. And this is helpful as he can give us insights into the more practical steps that we can take to respond to this news of transformation that reaches us, as well as how to fix any dysfunctional elements revealed at this eclipse, such as how to ground ourselves and incarnate more fully into our bodies, ways to enhance and expand our income and our lines of income, how to more effectively manage our resources, be that possessions, talents, as well as where we might have been overdoing things or are dependent on various other people, and how that relates to our self-worth and any programs related to that. Now, I looked at the previous eclipses, previous lunar eclipses in this area, early Taurus. The last one again is in October 2004, before that in October 1986, and before that in October 1967. I mean, October 1966. So if you look at those periods, you might see something. It should be said that the Jupiter conjunct this lunar eclipse gives an element of luck and expansiveness or expansion, whichever the suffix is there, whichever suffix is to use, which can really help us in terms of expanding our material assets. Perhaps showing us where we could educate ourselves in these areas, to perhaps where travel could be more helpful, and generally where we could grow, perhaps spending more time in nature, different beautiful kind of rainforests around the world, or different kind of courses that might help us to more effective in what we're doing. As I say, Lilith and Juno's trine the full moon eclipse indicate taking practical actions for the collective at this point. But at the full moon eclipse, there's a grand water trine, Saturn, Pisces, Vesta, and Cancer, and Mercury, Mars, and the Sun, all in early Scorpio. So it could be quite an emotional lunar eclipse, I would guess. That's with realizations of how far we've moved over the last 2 years, or simultaneously, or as well as looking at what needs to be fixed. Yeah, so that's about it, really. I mean, as with all eclipses, watch out for things eclipsing in and out of our lives. And I hope you get to make use of the energies here. I should mention, apparently, I'm in the top 15 astrology podcasts in the UK. But I don't know if what that exactly means. I mean, it sounds like I went to like Hong Kong, and I think I saw the tallest bronze seated Buddhist statue that was also green in the world, which is kind of like a few things really that, you know, I don't know exactly how good that is, but hopefully we'll get to the top 15 in the world at some point. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed that, and don't forget to, if you're interested in more, go to Telegram or website or various places or Second Life and see the beautiful city where AstroLee is on there. See you, bye-bye.